Brad, you just spoke about Darryl being a coach who maximizes performance. Obviously, you don't feel like this group this year has maximized performance, but we've seen sort of 5 head coaches in the last 5 calendar years come in and sort of, manage this group. So I'm just curious, I mean, what level of responsibility lies with the players right now?
Well, all the responsibility relies with the players. And, and it seems very repetitive when I sit up here and as you mentioned, Danny, we've made changes. Responsibility lies with myself, first and foremost. And, when you make those decisions, every decision you make it because you feel it's in the best interest of the team. And certainly churning coaches is not something that leads to success. But the message to the players is the coach they've got now isn't going anywhere. And it's now on the players to perform. And we're in a unique time too, Danny. This is I don't put all this on Geoff. This is not something I'm laying at the feet of Geoff and Geoff alone. Unfortunately, when player movement is as difficult as it is right now, and you continue to look at every way to improve your team, and we'll continue to look at that. I just felt strongly over the course of the last little bit that our team was underperforming. It needed this change. This change was required. And not only was a change required, Darryl was required. We needed Darryl. This team needs Darryl and what he can bring.
So just as a follow-up to that, I mean, you mentioned Darryl's here. He's here to stay. Do you worry that, I mean, obviously good teams sort of have a system and they get their players to buy in over a number of years. Do you worry that this, constant rotation of coaches has sort of stifled this group's ability to become a contender?
No, I don't. I mean, like I said, churning coaches over every year is not, it's not a recipe for success. I don't think a lot of our situation, there is certainly some structure, and every coach has a little tweak or a little bit different way they play. Ours isn't a structure issue. Ours isn't a system issue. Although those will be changed. Ours is maximizing performance issue.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Eric Francis next.
Hey, Darryl, welcome back.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I'm good. I'm interested. The game continues to change, and I know you watch these guys very closely. Do you anticipate your coaching style will change from what it was back in 03-04 and also the way it was in LA?
Yeah, I think it changed a lot, from quite honest, over that period of time, just in terms of the way the rules changed and the style of the game changed. There's fundamentals though in it, Eric, that never changed in terms of taking care of your own end and shot volume, puck possession, things like that, where analytics became involved. And I think when I went to LA, we used the analytic part of it very effectively, and at the same time played a style that was conducive to winning championships. And if you look at the teams that are winning championships, you look at how Tampa changed their style of game by bringing in certain types of players, having a better defense, getting star players to buy in, and they went from being a contender to winning championships, and that's the most recent ones. So, I think that their coaching staff changed, and we're quite honest, Eric, working with Anaheim the last couple of years with their new coaching staff. You see the little changes that you could make or have to make, but at the end of the day, it's still about relationships and one-on-one, and getting, as Brad said, still getting the most out of guys. And when I look at this group, it's they're a very intriguing group because there's a lot of really good players. They just have to adjust their style a little bit to do what it takes to win, and we'll do that.
So Brad just alluded to it too. The structure of this team, you anticipate that will change, and how about the lines? Do you see those having radically overhauled?
No, when I watched the game, I've watched probably 10 or 11 of our games this year now, and the lines haven't changed drastically. I think getting Derek Ryan back last night really helped the middle of the ice. there's guys that can move around, but I still think there are, the league is still about 2 guys at a time and moving guys around. But if you look, you're coming off last night and you're playing again tonight, you certainly wouldn't switch those lines around. I think that forward group was very functional and very compatible last night.
Thanks, Darryl.
We'll
Well,
go to
when are you gonna be here?
Monday for sure. I'm in the going through protocol right now, and then I get still some things to take care of. Get everything sorted out here on the farm before I leave.
Yeah, Eric, as you can imagine, you've got to go through a testing process. So Darryl's getting tested, and go through the protocol while he cleans up some of the personal stuff to get ready to get down here, and he'll be here on Monday and take over for Tuesday's practice officially. In the interim, Ryan Huska will run the bench in Edmonton and back home Sunday. No other changes to the coaching staff. Marty Jelena, Ray Edwards, Jason LaBarbera, and Jordan Siglet will assist, or Jamie Pringle.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go to Ryan Leslie next.
Darryl, I guess just from a standpoint of when you were head coaching, it's a very different time now than it was maybe back then in terms of the players and the approach, and just everything's a little bit different now. I wonder how you adjust your style in order to get the most out of those star players, as you mentioned in Tampa. How do you intend on doing that to relate to them and have them relate to you?
I think, number one, I'm not sure how far back you're going, but if you look at, for sure, with coaching staffs, how big they've become and how they've evolved into situation coaches, meaning taking care of a power play, taking care of a penalty kill, take care of a pre-scout, take care of centerman, take care of fitness. There's so many different ways. And the biggest part of a head coach's responsibility now is the one-on-one and the honesty and getting the most out of guys. So that is something that continues to drive. That's what drives the bus on the good teams, is the relationship the coaches have with the head coach has with players, and how he can maximize what they have inside of them. And it's not always easy. It's sometimes it's a pull and sometimes it's a push and sometimes it's side by side. So, that part of the game hasn't changed. What has changed it, as I said, is the size of the staffs, the number of guys that you have to use to work with players.
We'll go to Kevin with CTV next.
Hi there. In 2019, Darryl, your former player Daniel Carcillo accused you of kicking someone in the lower back on the bench and berating a concussed player in front of the rest of the team. Did you do these things?
No, I think honesty and truth always prevails, and we'll just leave that.
Okay, just as a follow-up, you just answered this a little bit, but have you changed your approach for dealing with players? Do you think there's certain things that you would have said to a player 15 years ago that you wouldn't say to them now?
I think players are younger, so I've got children. They're the same age as most of our players, and I have a lot of respect for them and what they're going through in their lives, and not so much on the ice as off the ice. And I've always had quite honestly, a great relationship with what's going on with players off the ice, and it's something that I feel really good about, is being able to help young players or help guys get through situations.
We'll go to Jim Conlon next.
Jim, you're the only one with a picture on.
Yeah. Hi, Darryl. Darryl, I'm just wondering, have you been set a sort of short-term objectives for the remainder of the season?
Well, we got to beat Edmonton tomorrow night and then beat Ottawa on Sunday night. I mean, your goals are very clear. Before you can talk about winning rounds in the playoffs, you got to be a playoff team, And the way the season's set up this year, you got to play playoff hockey every night, and that's the plan.
And I suppose, Darryl, when you looked at this team, when you decided to take on this job, what elements of this team, this sort of franchise, that appealed to you the most?
Well, I think there's a nucleus of 9 or 10 players that are really good players in the National Hockey League. And so from a coaching standpoint, that jumps out at you always. When you have a top goalie and you have 2 or 3 top defensemen and you're strong down the middle of the ice, you have the recipe for winning. So that's what appealed to me the most.
Cheers. Best of luck, Darryl.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Gemma next.
Hi, gentlemen. Darryl, you said that there was 2 teams you would consider coming back to coach for. What was the other team?
Well, I was drafted and basically played and coached and we pretty much grew up in Chicago as youngsters. So those were always cities. That was a city that always appealed to me, and then obviously brought up Calgary, and that was a lot of it because of family and type of team too, and ownership. And, something I've always went back to when I've talked about coaching or opportunities with other organizations. It always came back to ownership, and I've been blessed to only be involved with great ownership, starting with the Wirtz family in Chicago, and obviously I was very close to Doc and Harley and Bud in Calgary here, and then Murray came on with Allen and Mr. Libman. So it's like I have a debt to pay to them guys, and we're going to win a Stanley Cup for them.
Great. And Brad, I want to go back to your opening remarks quickly. You talked about Walter Gretzky being a Canadian icon. I'm wondering if you can expand on what made him a Canadian icon, and if you have any particular memories of him that you'd like to share.
Well, I just think he was, Canada's hockey dad. So visible. What always grabbed me every time I saw Walter was just the passion he had. Usually it was when you see him on the road in Phoenix, and big smile on his face and the passion he had for watching the game. I remember a real, probably the funniest story I ever had was I played with Keith Gretzky in the minors years and years ago, and we'd play in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Walter would drive up and have coffee with Keith before the games in Erie. And I remember sneaking a sip of his coffee one time. I said, maybe I can get a little bit of that magic potion that he's got. But just a wonderful man, and it's a sad day.
I'll follow up on that, Brad. I remember when I was still a player in Edmonton or in Chicago, and we were playing the Oilers in the old Coliseum, and we were walking out to the bus after the game, and my dad was at the game, and Mr. Gretzky, Walter, was there obviously too, and they were both standing up after the game. You could tell they were, even though Wayne was Oilers and I was Chicago, they were talking about the game, and you could tell. I wish I had taken a picture, because there's something about they were like 2 old coaches standing there talking about the game. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll go to Mark Steven next.
Yes, Darryl, good to see you back.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, Darryl, I just wanted to ask, you're going to walk into that room. What's sort of the first thing you want to impart on these guys? Because they've been on such a roller coaster, tremendous games one day and then get blown out the next. It's not just losing by 1 or 2 goals. This is a real teeter-totter. Yeah,
I think, Mark, we Zoomed with all the players already today in 2 different groups, and the message is really clear. We're going to get this thing straightened out and get the most out of everybody, and everybody's looking forward to it and excited about it. And it's not so much when I walk through the room. I think I tried to be clear this morning, and then I apologize for not being able to do it in front of them. But you know what? deep down, I believe it's a good hockey club, and Brad made moves in the off season after the bubble to bring in as good a goalie as there is in the NHL, and bring in a top defenseman, and bring in, kids from organizations that, from Boston, and that are, the guys that are used to winning and want to win and have had success. So that's, we just got to put it all together, and they got to do it as one instead of, sometimes it's hard for young guys to get off track a little bit, and they want to do it as individuals, and we'll do it as a team, and then we'll be happy, and we're going to be happy doing it. There's nothing better than feeling good about it after you work your tails off and win.
Good. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in person, not via Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to Moses next.
Hi, gentlemen. I just wanted to ask a question, one for each of you. We'll start with you, Brad. Just in regards to the contract that you're giving Darryl, there is a commitment there, and I'm wondering, with that commitment, this must have been something that didn't come spontaneously. How were the negotiations, and when did you finally come to the conclusion that he's your guy, from the timetable of, deposing of Geoff Ward to bringing in Darryl and committing to him for 3 years? And Darryl, my question for you is, would you have come to Calgary if it was on some kind of interim basis or no long-term commitment?
I was not, if you want me to answer first, I was not either way. I just, I've been in a long time, and I know the coaching business it's a tough one, and it's the hardest job in that locker room. So, you want term, you want to, as long as you can go, but at the same time, that really wasn't important to me. It's not like I'm 35 and trying to start up a career. I can back it up, and the length was not an issue. No.
And for me, Moses, without getting into too much deeper, this wasn't the first time I've reached out to Darryl. I've known Darryl. I've had a huge amount of respect for him for a long time. I've had a good relationship with Darryl for a long time. This time it lined up for everybody. And like I said, over the course of the last little while here, when you watch your team, your job as a manager is to take your cues from your team. And I just felt, it's never easy to make change, but the job is to make difficult decisions. So I knew he had to make a change, and there's only one guy in mind that I knew that we needed to have. So it came together fairly quickly over the course of the last few days.
Okay, we'll go to Wes Gilbertson next.
Hey, just one question for each of you, if you don't mind. To start with Brad, I'm just wondering, I think Darryl has this reputation in the city as like, hey, here's a tough guy, a demanding coach, and we've heard him talk so much about relationships today. Can you just speak to that balance and what kind of the whole package is that you believe you've brought in here?
Well, I mean, let's get one thing straight. Being demanding and having expectations is not a bad thing. We're in a business, it's hard to win, and you need to extend people. You need to push, as Darryl said, push, sometimes pull, sometimes walk arm in arm. So I don't know if there's anyone that does it as well as Darryl does. But let's not mistake that. There's honesty, there's clarity. And Darryl is one of the best humans I've been around, in terms of, you know a lot of people in your life, and when you talk to them and they ask you how you are. Darryl's one of those guys, he actually means and wants to know how you are. So this is the guy who's got great depth, one of the sharpest minds, as I said, that's stood behind a bench in our league, and has the ability to extract the very best out of each individual. And that's a skill It's not easy, but the players will always know exactly where they stand. There'll be complete clarity. It will be black and white, and that's all you can ask as a player. You know, when maximum effort is required and asked, I don't think you're asking too much.
Thanks, Brad. And Darryl, welcome back.
Hey, Wes.
For you, and I know I'm getting 5 steps ahead of you, but when you look at the prospect of what it's going to take to finish that business that you talk about, you know, what is it going to take to do that job here in Calgary?
Well, first, you mean in terms of team winning or performance?
Well, I just mean, sorry, I should have been more clear. I just mean when you talk about the unfinished business of 04, obviously, you know, you have big goals with this team. What's the roadmap to get there?
I think the number one is understanding the price that it takes and the commitment and the honesty and the support, and you know, they all line up, and I think that I think this team has as good as opportunity as anybody to make the playoffs and to do well in the playoffs. This is a tough division. I think it's something that's got overlooked in all this is when they realigned the division and made it all Canada. You know, we added in 3 really elite teams and 1 team that's building on through work and character. So you bring in Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, it's made it tough, and it's a challenge every night. So in order to become a playoff team, you're going to have to play playoff type hockey every night. And that's a challenge with the schedule. And I seen where Brad said that somewhere in the last day or two about, you know, your A game and your B game. Well, you can win a lot of nights in your B game if everybody's dug into it. But that's what we have to try and do here, and we will. We will do everything in our power to make that happen.
We'll go to Solomon Valji next.
Hey, this is for both of you. Initially, Brad, you've talked about the players, and this is now their 5th head coach for a few of them since 2015. At what point is it their responsibility to take ownership for how this franchise has sort of performed recently? And Darryl, do you look at the cycling through head coaches? Is that a bit of a red flag for you, or how do you perceive the number of coaches that have been here in the past few years?
Go ahead, Brett.
Okay, I'll take the first part. It's always on the player's responsibility. You know, and as I said, if you look at just recently, and I know this is over the course of the last year, it's difficult right now when you talk about there's different ways to shake up your team and improve your team. Obviously, player transactions is one of that. We're in a different environment right now, Salam, and you know, not that you continue to look at that avenue, but you know, you make a transaction with the quarantine rules, you're not getting immediate impact. But that's only this year. We've as you said, we've gone through some good coaches here, but it's always on the players. But the unfortunate and difficult part of this business is you can't change entire rosters. And like I said, all those, when you've gone through it, you want stability. You need stability to have success. And when we've made changes, we felt you're making decisions each time what you feel is in the best interest of the team. But it should be real clear that the coaching position in Calgary is going to be stable for some time here.
And Darryl, just did you look at the number of coaches in the past few years, and what do you think about the reasons that there's been that turnover, and what do you think you can do to sort of stabilize things?
Well, I did not look at the number of coaches who've been here the last few years, because it's quite honest, that's irrelevant to me. I think what's more important than that is there's probably, just off the top of my head, there's 5 or 6 players that have and really good players that started their career here and have been here through all those coaches. And what's important for them to know now is that, you know what, I'm here with them and I'm going to stick with them, and whoever works best for them is what I'm going to do. And you know, I've only been in, quite honest, in situations where I stayed, you know, I had 5 and 6 year deals, and that's how it worked. Was on the 5th or 6th year we thought we had a chance of winning, and that's how we built it, and that's what we did. This is obviously different, but the similarities are is that these kids grew up in the organization and they're really good players, and they don't need this turnover anymore. They just need some stability, and they need some leadership from that same coach for a long time.
We'll go to Mark Wicker next.
Darryl, how similar is this to the situation when you took over the Kings during that season?
Well, the one that would be really clear is when I took over, they were neither one of us were in a playoff spot, and we fought like hell to make it. And you know, there's a lot of similarities with top players, and that team was probably a little bit more veteran at the time, but at the same time we had to get kids, young players in the right frame of mind, and they were star players and still are, to think about what it takes to win and to prepare and take care of yourself, all those things. And so that there are similarities, but at that time too, when I went to LA, you had 40 some games left, and so you had longer it was more of a process. I think here's different, where we have to try and speed that up as much as we can. And if you look at that, I'm just thinking back to out loud now, thinking about that team. You know, we went on and won the Stanley Cup, but we had to go through Brad's team in Arizona, and it just tells you how close everything is. They beat Chicago, who's the heavy favorite, so it allowed us to, a lot of ways, to win a championship, because we had a better chance against Arizona than we would have against Chicago. So it just tells you how close the league is, and how you got to max out your players, and how it takes everybody.
Thank you.
We'll go to Pete Labardius next.
Hello, Darryl.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
How are you?
I won't have to listen to you on the tractor every day now, feeding cows.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness for you. Darryl, at the core root, if I think I've learned anything in dealing with you and even your brothers over the years, is work and family, and bringing both of those to the hockey teams that you have coached. Do you see it any different today than you ever have? And I guess second, Darryl, is that more challenging in 2021 than it might have been in the past?
Yeah, it's probably more challenging this year than in the past, just because you're not allowed. With COVID, you're just not allowed to do as much, straight up with guys and face to face and all that. But it's still, it's still. I've always said my good fortune as a coach has been because I understand people, and it doesn't take long for me to figure that out. So it's not always just about the work part of it and family part of it. It's understanding, understanding the kids.
Okay, we'll go to Darren Haynes.
Hey, Darryl, have you seen a change in the blueprint for what it takes to win in the playoffs? If so, what is that blueprint today? And from what you've seen from Calgary, do you have the right pieces?
Well, the blueprint for winning the playoffs is that, number one, it's a marathon, and you need lots of players, and you need guys who are in for the paying full fare the whole way, and that is the blueprint. And series are, most of them go 6-7 games, and they're tough and hard. And to me, that's still the emphasis on winning. You can have, you have to have guys that are going to want to go the distance and dig in all the time. And so that is the blueprint to being a good playoff team. And I've seen it in lots of different ways. And I brought it up before, the defending champion. They had to learn how to do that, and they had to make some changes to do that. But in the end, they were the best at it.
Okay, we'll go to Haley Salvian next.
Speaking of a playoff blueprint, Brad, how much does a move like bringing in Darryl signal that the aspirations of this team remain the same as the first Zoom calls that we were on 2 months ago?
Yeah, it's a great point, Haley. We do have an expectation of the team, and we think we have the ability to be a good team that's playing. We think we're a good team that's playing poorly right now, but as the old saying goes, you are what your record says you are. So, as I said earlier, there should be a recognition of the urgency that's required. And make no mistake, our players understand. There's a belief in that group that this is a good group, but it comes down to actions. And as I said, I felt strongly that this action was required and Darryl was required for us to maximize the group. But we feel, we think we like our group, but we need to change some things and get back on track.
Okay, and the final question will go to Danny Austin.
Darryl, we just heard you talk about this blueprint for winning Stanley Cups. The Flames have largely sort of had disappointments in the playoffs over the last couple of years. So how do you think this team fits that blueprint? What do you see that suggests that they have that blueprint available?
Well, just going off the bubble playoffs this last season, when I talked about it being a marathon, and I believe Tampa or Dallas set the record for most playoff games ever played, and a lot of that was because of the extra teams in it. But if you just look at the Flames, they come in and win the first round, and it tells you about the marathon part of it. Guys get banged up and things happen, and then it looks like then it's over. And so it just tells you also about the importance of that whole group of being healthy and guys accepting roles and playing different minutes and I said this before, with the blueprint, is there. Now you got to take it and build it. The blueprint is there. The goalie and the defenseman, the top end defenseman and the centerman are there, and that's what it takes. You win the championships down the middle of the ice and the goalie on right down. So I believe that, and we'll build around that.